Deion Sanders landed some linemen in the portal.
Four of them.
Landed
quartet.
A 5-star offensive tackle, Jordan Seaton, out of Bradenton, Florida, IMG.
Yes.
That was the rabbit out of the hat late in the process pull in the high school ranks for Deion. So I guess you could count that as 5 additions to the team next year. What is your take? Is the offensive line fixed? Because we got a lot of, I don't know if you noticed this on Twitter, because I was at the zoo, but I check my mentions every now and then. What do you have to say about Deion now, asshole? Like we got a lot of that, and I don't.
Hey, I'm the one who wrote about it. I remember one who wrote talking to coaches across the Pac-12 who bemoaned his ability to get a whole new line. And here's what's left unsaid, because he did basically. I think he probably is going to start. Kerry Walker from Connecticut, Tyler Seaton's going to start. There's no question.
You think so?
In my mind, yeah, yes. Huge position of need. I mean, as long as you don't.
You ever heard of a guy named Caden Proctor?
Yeah, and he starts, Ari. He started most of the season at the best program in the country.
Yeah.
So anyway.
The offensive line is not receiver. Let's just put it that way.
Sure, but have you watched Colorado, Ari? Tyler Johnson from Houston, Justin Mayers from UTEP, and Khalil Benson from Indiana. I think most of those guys are going to be starting, and they also add Tyler Brown from Jackson State, who was ineligible this year. So here's the question, and I think we'll find out. And I think it also does matter that you're not pulling like first team all conference guys. You're not pulling, guys that are, vaunted NFL prospects. Are you improved? I don't know. We'll see. But these guys are not world beaters necessarily. I think Tyler Johnson is probably the best of that bunch. He's got a lot of experience. He started at Texas.
It's not like Joe Alt is walking through the door.
Sure.
Like we're not getting like the best left tackle in the country. Now, the thing that I have a hard time with is I anticipate that their offensive line will be better. I think it'll be very interesting to see how ready a true freshman is to play a tackle position, if that's in case the plan.
Well, ready is an operative term when you have maybe one of the worst offensive lines in the Power
5-star offensive linemen can play terribly as freshmen and still turn out to be great. Like I think Caden Proctor could still be a first-round pick one day.
Yeah, I mean, when I covered Tennessee, they had Wanya Morris and Darnell Wright, who both had some rough moments as true freshmen. Started at Tennessee in the SEC going up against all those tackles. And Wanya, he's in the rotation with the Chiefs, and Darnell Wright's killing it for the Bears. So
right. I think that the development scale for linemen is just different. But the thing that I am really just trying to quantify here when it comes to Colorado, Dave, is what are the actual expectations? Everybody's like, we don't want to make the playoff next year. We anticipate making the playoff, or that's the expectation. But it's like he is building this program in a way where it feels like he's trying to hit the lottery in 1 or 2 years, and he's not building it in a way that has either staying power or is healthy to me. So even if these offensive linemen turn out to be very good, I don't know their collective eligibility situations.
I think it's a grab bag.
You're trying to fix it very quickly. And I hired a handyman in my house to fix some shit quickly. And let me tell you, it all broke again very quickly. So it's either doing it right or doing it fast. And I think he is doing it fast.
Well, here's part of this. We didn't get to see practice last year. Deion didn't allow a lot of that. I was out there quite a bit. But what we saw in games wasn't good. Now, I'm a big believer in continuity. I think you can learn from reps. I think you can learn from chemistry. And Deion is kind of doing, again, what he did last year, which is something that you don't see in college football, which is put all of this together and expect that it's going to work. And that, Deion famously said, I don't think, culture matters or chemistry matters. I forget. In the offensive line, it does matter. You need to know, communication is huge. Predictability is huge when this happens. This is what this guy does. Often the best offensive lines are offensive lines that have been together. And so if you believe that these guys are indeed upgrades, and we've seen a couple of Colorado's leftover offensive linemen, Van Wells is a center, Gerard Lichtenhan, I forget how to pronounce his last name. He was a 6'10" guy, played a tackle for them. Those guys both hit the portal. So if you believe that these guys are upgrades, there's something to be said for that. But if your plan is just, well, these offensive linemen aren't getting the job done, we're just going to hit the portal again next year. That's if there is a next year. That's
well.
not
There's also a limitation of a ceiling too. Of like, you're not going to get to level up. Like you're going to get to a point where that's as good as you're going to get. Like you're not going to get better every year. There's going to be an expiration or a limit to who is in there and who's willing to come play for you. And let me tell you, I could think of a lot of reasons why somebody might want to play for Deion Sanders. I can't think of one why an offensive lineman would. Other than playing early and trying to help build something quick, I would, that's a very important developmental place. And they know they hired a new offensive line coach, but that offensive line coach, I believe, has never been a position coach before.
He has not. Phil Lodeholt, I covered him as a player. That's when you're getting old, Ari. Yeah. I think two things with Colorado. And this is stuff that, didn't make it in the story that I talked to a lot of the coaches about. Two things that weren't in there that we had a lot of conversations about. One, which is, and Deion's doing it again, talking about the playoff, setting these really high goals, setting the narrative for his team. And that does, for better or worse, shape how people view your team, But that's also not really Deion's style. Last year I went out there for their team media day before the season, and they were saying, like, listen, we're not talking about 6-6. We're not talking about, improving, whatever. We're aiming for the playoff. They've got a playoff trophy that's on the wall, like a what's it called? A fathead, like hanging in their team lounge. Like it's very explicitly talked about. Okay. And a couple of the coaches I talked to were basically like this, he's building up this narrative that like gets people excited, but it like shapes how you like when you improve from 1 to 4 wins, even if you can nitpick, how much
they're still so far off from that discussion.
Yeah. It shortchanges what you've actually done. And secondly, multiple of the coaches like, you can't be blaming these kids. You can't be blaming the kids when you're throwing the offensive linemen under the bus. It doesn't matter if they're doing the dumbest stuff possible, which I don't think they were. I don't think effort was an issue. I think they just weren't great players. And you just can't be like, we're going to get, new linemen. These guys can't cut it, especially when, and a lot of coaches notice this, especially when the quarterback, even when he makes some curious decisions, like in the Stanford game, where he threw a pretty backbreaking interception, when the quarterback can do no wrong. This is something that came up pretty frequently.
I just do not see the renovation occurring from the outside. Now, he'll come out and tell you, hey, you're not in the house. You don't know what we're doing. Granted, I don't. All I know is Sean Lewis is the head coach at San Diego State. People are leaving your staff. The portal is filled with your players. You're bringing in some solid players, but not great players to replace them, and you're talking about the playoff next year. And it's just like, I'm not buying it again.